This screenshot was from yesterday. So this one is pretty easy to understand. You know, 1 touch, 2 touch, 3rd touch he wants to see. Over here, he's got, 3 bars, 3 wicks basically touching, touching the support line. Pretty clear, easy to understand. All right, so I don't have any real kind of clarity on how these touches are being defined. So I'm just gonna use some basic definitions, of a bar, touching a support or resistance line here. And to do that, let's make a new logic template here. There we go. New logic template. There we go. So signal on 3rd touch. Something like that. That's basically what this question is focusing on. All right, so I'm going to grab a couple of comparison solvers. Right, so we're comparing, various prices of the bar, to a plot line, right? So a resistance plot line or a support plot line, whatever the case may be. So let's connect that in. Let's see, compare the low or the high of the bar to PP line of the pivots indicator here. All right, so input A, that will need to be price. All right, so let's take a look at the screenshot coming in here. So I'm just gonna guess here that if price is hitting up against a resistance line, that we're going to generate short signals, right? So in other words, the high price of the bar, we'll use that to generate short signals, for a bounce off of resistance. Right? So for a short signal, we're going to use the high of the bar. And for a long signal, so if price is bouncing off of a support line, we're using the low of the bar. So there. All right, then input B, well, that is our support or resistance line or plot, right? So that, in this case, we are using the pivots indicator. And in this particular case, I am using the PP line here, which is already selected for me. All right. And let's see here, little side note here. When you're system building using Ninja's pivots indicator, you want to use calculated from intraday data. All right. Otherwise, this indicator will not, calculate pivots lines correctly. So, all right. So there we go. And going back to the screenshot. So Vito wants to use a 0.5 ATR range there. So we're going to go into the difference here. And we're going to change our measured in. We're going to change our units here from ticks to ATRs. And go from ticks to ATRs. And we want, there we go, 0.5 ATR. So now I can close that back up, and there we go. So now we have a 0.5 ATR for our difference between the high and low price of the bar to the pivots lines. All right, and next we need to adjust the output here. So we want to know when input A equals input B within half an ATR. Right. Like so. Okay, and so there we go. So we have a bunch of bars here that are going within, right? Getting within half an ATR there, right? Okay, and that's using the high and low of the bar. And so sometimes, you also might want to use the close of the bar. Like, for example, right? Price is never a perfect thing here, so sometimes you'll see that the wick right, can break through the other side. But sometimes, right, you might have, let's see, well, there's no perfect example, but, let's take this bar right here. So let's say this wick, went a little bit higher. If it went a few ticks higher, this wouldn't have counted. But we can see that the close of the bar is, within half an ATR, the PP line, right? So when you're detecting, price touching or, going within some proximity of a plot line or, support resistance line, you may just want to use the high or the low of the bar, but you also might want to include the close of the bar sometimes as well. So what we can do here is grab another comparison solver, and this time we'll create one using the closing price. So again, we'll take input A, set it to price, and we're going to use the closing price. And again, we need to switch our difference over to the ATR. Plug in 0.5. There we go. And then input B. Switch that over to the PP or the pivots indicator. And where is it? There we go. The pivots indicator. And all right, the PP plot is already selected for us. And let's adjust our outputs again. All right, there we go. So we have two solvers, both exactly the same, with the exception that one solver is using the closing price and the other solver is using the low or high of the bar. And so next we will join them together with an OR node like that. And so there we go. So and we'll just call this OR node like touch. There we go. Touch of the PP plot. Something like that. All right. So basically, yeah. So there is our logic for, detecting when, price gets in proximity of a, plot line. All right. So now the next part is blocking, right, the first two touches and seeing the third touch. All right, so here's the key to this question here. And so that is what the signal counter, we want the signal counter. So we want to count the third touch. All right, so let's connect that in like so. We'll connect this up. All right, so the counter, so what are we counting up to? So we want to count up to the third, basically the third input, right? So what are we inputting into the signal counter, right? Well, we're inputting signals when, right? We're inputting signals when price touches our support resistance line. And so we want to count up to the third one. And so now we need to kind of determine a look back period, right? So when you're counting things, well, you have to decide how many bars back are you allowed to look to count for some kind of condition there, right? So in other words, obviously, when you're looking for a third touch, you're not going all the way back to the beginning of the chart, right? So you're only looking back so far. And so you have to, ask yourself, how far back, am I going to allow myself to look? So, all right, so we have a look back period, and I'll just say probably 30 bars is probably good enough. You know, I don't know, maybe you need 50 bars. You know, it all depends on, you know, the situation, you know, the patterns that you're kind of looking for here. So I'll just leave this at 30 for now. That's probably good enough, right? And let's see the output here. So if we look at analog here, we can see that on the first touch, right, the output here, let me grab another arrow there. Right, so on the first touch, since we're counting 3 touches here, every time we get a touch, the output is going to equal a third. So if you look at my cross here, right, that's 0.33, that's a third. And then when we get the second touch down here, we get 2/3, or 0.66. And then when we get to the third touch, now we get 100% output. Right? So that's what the, you know, so if you kind of want to see, you know, that analog output like that, you can, but most people just want to look at it digital. You know, either we have 3 touches or we don't. So most people want to use the digital there. And there we have it. Right. So we got 1, 2, and then there is the third touch. Right. When looking at this bar, you know, you might consider, well, that is touching, you know, but again, you kind of need to figure out what exactly is your definition of a touch, because the high of the bar went too far high and the close of the bar is down there. So I don't know, maybe you might want to include the open of the bar as well, you know. So you kind of have to kind of figure out, you know, when you're building these comparison solvers, you know, what price points of the bar, you know, you want to use, you know, when you're comparing the price points of the bar, you know, to your support resistance line. But, you know, but I don't want to get, you know, too distracted on that, because the question is really about setting up the signal counter there. Okay, one last step. So we're going to grab another AND node, put the signal counter into that, take the original signals, connect it in, and there we go. And that cleans it up. So basically, there is, you know, the third touch plus all the other bars, you know, where the high or the close gets close enough to our resistance line there. All right, so logic is pretty simple here. Just one signal counter with an AND node, and so probably there, Constantine, the real key is kind of clearly defining what your definition of, you know, a price touching a support resistance line is. You know, whether you're grouping them together or not, you know, clarifying that is probably going to get, will clean up, you know, any kind of signals that you get there, right? You know, so keep in mind, you know, when you're trying to implement like price patterns, you know, price action, you know, that is a very tricky concept to kind of define for computers, you know, to define for computers to see things, you know, versus our kind of visual instincts, you know, when we're looking at a chart there. That's probably the main reason why you don't see hardly any price pattern based indicators out there, because they are very difficult to define. All right, guys, with that, if I don't see you tomorrow in tomorrow's workshop, then have a great weekend, everybody. All right, see you next time. Bye-bye.